Melania Trump's unexpected entrance onto the stage of Alex Brooks's primetime talk show sent shockwaves through the audience. The set, usually filled with laughter and sharp political banter, took on an entirely different energy as the former First Lady stepped into the spotlight. Dressed in a sleek ivory suit, she radiated an aura of poise and quiet strength, instantly commanding attention. Alex Brooks, a seasoned host known for his relentless questioning and liberal leanings, momentarily faltered. He had built his reputation on pushing boundaries, challenging guests, and delivering biting commentary. However, as Melania walked towards him with an effortless confidence, his polished grin wavered for just a second before he quickly regained composure. "Thank you for having me," Melania said, her accent deliberate and measured. The audience, caught between curiosity and skepticism, responded with a mix of hesitant applause and murmured whispers. No one had expected this. Brooks himself seemed slightly thrown off, but masked it with his signature smirk. He was prepared for a spectacle, but what he didn't realize was that this interview would not unfold the way he had planned. As the lights intensified and cameras zoomed in, the air in the room thickened with anticipation. What was supposed to be just another night of sharp political exchanges was about to turn into a moment that would leave the world talking for weeks. As the interview began, Alex Brooks maintained his usual charm, settling into his chair with an easy confidence. "So, Melania," he started, flashing his signature smirk. "Life after the White House? What's it like?" Melania met his gaze without hesitation, her voice steady and deliberate. "Life is peaceful," she replied. "I focus on my family, my projects, and helping children through my initiatives." The audience listened intently, intrigued by her calm presence. But Alex wasn't here for pleasantries. He was known for pushing boundaries, and tonight would be no different. "Many have criticized you for staying silent on controversial topics during your time as First Lady," he pressed. "How do you respond to that?" Melania didn't flinch. Instead, she answered with unwavering composure. "I believe actions speak louder than words," she said simply. "It is easy to talk, but harder to make a real difference. I focus on what I can do, not on what others expect me to say." The tension in the room thickened as Alex leaned forward, sensing an opportunity to challenge her further. His expression sharpened, his tone carrying a subtle edge. "Interesting philosophy," he mused, tapping his pen on the armrest. "But don't you think some moments demand words, especially when the stakes are so high?" For a moment silence hung in the air. Then Melania tilted her head slightly, her expression unreadable. "I believe everyone has their role," she said. "My role was to support my husband and our country in my own way." The conversation had begun to shift, and Alex, though skilled in his craft, was starting to realize that he wasn't in full control of this interview. The tension in the room grew heavier as Alex Brooks decided to push further. His smirk widened slightly as he tapped his pen against the table, preparing for his next move. "Supporting your husband," he echoed, his tone carrying a hint of skepticism. "Does that include staying silent, even when his words or actions stirred division?" A few gasps rippled through the audience. It was a bold, calculated question, one meant to corner Melania into either defending or distancing herself from the former president. Alex leaned back, arms folded, waiting for a defensive response. But Melania didn't take the bait. Instead, she let the silence linger for a moment, her gaze unwavering. "Division has always existed," she finally responded, her voice calm and measured. "Blaming one person for it is easy, but it does not solve the problem. I choose to focus on unity, not blame." A murmur spread through the audience. Some nodded in agreement, others whispered among themselves, sensing that Melania was holding her ground. Alex, momentarily caught off guard, quickly regrouped. "Fair point," he conceded, but he wasn't done yet. "Speaking of unity, there are rumors, controversies, things people want to hear directly from you. For example, your marriage." The room collectively inhaled. The air felt thick as the interview veered into deeply personal territory. Melania's expression remained composed, but a flicker of something sharp flashed in her eyes. She had expected this, and she was ready. Alex Brooks leaned forward, sensing the shift in the room. He had pushed many high-profile guests into uncomfortable corners before, but Melania Trump was proving to be unlike the rest. He adjusted his posture, pen in hand, and delivered his next question with a deliberate, measured tone. "Let's address the elephant in the room, Melania. Many have questioned your choices, your silence during some of the most tumultuous times in recent history, and even your relationship with the former president. Are you here to set the record straight?" The audience sat on the edge of their seats, anticipation thick in the air. Some whispered among themselves, knowing this was the moment they had been waiting for, a confrontation that promised fireworks. Alex's smirk deepened, confident that he had cornered his guest. But Melania did not flinch. She did not lean back, nor did she hesitate. Instead, she straightened her posture, exuding the poise and grace that had always defined her. "I am here to speak for myself," she said firmly, her accent carrying a subtle sharpness. "Not for rumors, not for stories made by people who do not know me." Alex opened his mouth to interrupt, but Melania was not finished. "Everyone has opinions," she continued, her words deliberate and controlled. "But opinions are not facts. I know who I am, and I know what I stand for. The rest is just noise." Silence. The audience absorbed her words, their weight undeniable. Even Alex, the seasoned host known for his relentless tactics, seemed momentarily at a loss. His smirk faltered, replaced by something closer to genuine surprise. Melania's gaze swept across the room. "It is easy to judge from the outside," she added. "Harder to look inside yourself and ask why you feel the need to judge." A ripple of applause broke out, hesitant at first, then growing stronger. Some members of the audience even stood, clapping in admiration. Alex, visibly thrown off his game, cleared his throat and attempted to regain control. "Well," he stammered, "that's quite a perspective." Melania simply smiled, a small, knowing expression that spoke volumes. The conversation had taken a turn no one had expected, and Alex Brooks was no longer the one in control. Alex Brooks took a moment to collect himself, shifting slightly in his seat. The energy in the room had changed. What had started as a confident interrogation was now an intense exchange in which he was no longer in control. The audience could feel it too. Some leaned forward, others whispered among themselves, and a few still clapped, the momentum from Melania's last statement lingering in the air. But Alex was not ready to concede. He adjusted his tie, gripping his pen as he leaned forward once more. His voice took on a sharper edge, an attempt to regain command of the conversation. "Melania," he said slowly, "there's something people have always been curious about. How do you reconcile your platform of unity and kindness with some of the more, let's say, controversial statements your husband has made? Statements that many say divided the nation." The audience fell silent, their attention fixated on the stage. It was the kind of question designed to trap someone, to force them onto the defensive. It was Alex's last-ditch effort to break Melania's composure. But she remained unshaken. Her expression did not falter, her hands remained gracefully folded in her lap. She let the silence stretch, allowing the weight of the question to settle before she responded. "People see what they want to see," she said, her voice measured. "My work has always been focused on helping children, promoting kindness and showing respect. I cannot control what others say or do, but I can control how I act. And I choose kindness." Alex raised an eyebrow, unimpressed by what he perceived as a vague answer. "But surely," he pressed, "there were moments when you could have spoken out, taken a stand?" Melania tilted her head slightly, her voice cutting through his interruption like a razor. "Taking a stand is not always about shouting the loudest," she said. Sometimes it is about staying true to your values, even when it is not popular. The audience erupted into applause. Some even cheered. Alex, momentarily stunned, struggled to find his footing. He had walked into this conversation expecting to control the narrative. Instead, Melania had turned the tables, proving that true strength did not come from confrontation, but from unwavering confidence in who you are. As the applause filled the studio, Alex Brooks sat back in his chair, his usual smirk fading into something more uncertain. He had underestimated Melania Trump. What was meant to be a sharp-edged interview filled with challenging questions meant to provoke had become something entirely different. Melania had not only held her ground, but had done so with grace, turning each attempt to corner her into an opportunity to reinforce her composure and principles. Still, Alex was not one to back down easily. He shifted slightly, glancing at his notes before raising his gaze back to his guest. If he was going to regain control of the conversation, he needed something bold, something that would shake her. "All right," he said, voice measured but carrying the unmistakable weight of a final attempt. "Let's address the question that's been on everyone's mind for years. Melania, do you ever regret marrying Donald Trump?" A collective gasp rippled through the audience. Even the camera operators hesitated, their hands gripping their equipment a little tighter. This was the moment the audience had been waiting for. The question no one expected him to ask outright. For the first time that evening, a heavy silence fell over the room. All eyes were on Melania, waiting for her reaction. But instead of recoiling or showing even the slightest sign of discomfort, she simply sat there, composed, letting the weight of the question settle. Finally, she spoke. "Regret," she said, her voice calm yet firm, "is for those who do not take responsibility for their choices. I know who I married. I know the life I chose, and I stand by it, not because it is easy, but because it is mine." The audience erupted into applause, some even standing. Alex blinked, visibly caught off guard. His confidence wavered for the first time that night. He had expected hesitation, doubt, perhaps even an emotional reaction. Instead, Melania's unwavering certainty had turned the question back on him, making his attempt seem petty in comparison. Melania let the applause carry on before adding, "We live in a world where it is easy to criticize from the sidelines, but the truth is, no one can understand someone's life unless they have lived it, and I do not owe anyone an explanation for my choices." The applause grew louder, and for the first time that night, Alex Brooks had no follow-up. Lessons from Melania Trump's interview, applying it to everyday life. Melania Trump's ability to remain composed under pressure during Alex Brooks' aggressive interview serves as a powerful lesson for navigating difficult situations in real life. In today's world, whether in the workplace, social settings, or online discussions, we often face criticism, challenging questions, or attempts to undermine our confidence. How we respond can define our personal and professional growth. Stay composed and control your reactions. In heated conversations, emotions can take over, but maintaining calmness, like Melania did, ensures that you remain in control. A well-thought-out response is always more impactful than an emotional reaction. Choose your battles wisely. Not every criticism deserves a reaction. Melania strategically addressed what was important while dismissing irrelevant noise. In life, knowing when to engage and when to let things go can save time and energy. Define your own narrative. Instead of letting others dictate your story, stand firm in your values and choices. Like Melania, focusing on what truly matters instead of being defensive can shift the power dynamic in any conversation. By applying these principles, we can handle adversity with confidence, maintain our integrity, and command respect in any situation.